Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for attending today's IPCB training session for organizational behavior. Okay, I will now pass the floor to Miss Danielle Cliffane. Danielle, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Chandel. So what we're going to have a look at today is we're going to have a look at the test and start preparing for the test. So we can look at any top tips. We will look at what I'm expecting to look at when I'm marking the paper. If you've got any questions, Miss Alina, ask as we go along, okay? But it's things that we've already been through. So at the end of each of our lessons, I've been going through the McDonald's paper. So I am going through that one again, but just in a bit more detail. So here's our aims and objectives for the session. So we're going to go through each learning outcome and link it to the past paper. We'll link how past merit and distinction grades are met. Oh, and I've left the O out for opportunities to ask questions as we go. I'll make that update before I send it to you. Oh no, did I do that? Okay, so just to have a look at the scenario again. So I do like to give a scenario for each of my papers. Just a reminder here, and it says for this report, you do not need to know about the brand McDonald's. So I will always write the paper based around a business, but the student does not need to know about the business in detail, because I don't think that's very fair and you won't be able to get the preparation time in place. So really what they're doing when they are writing the paper and writing their answers is they're using their common sense, but I will use businesses that they can relate to, hence I've used McDonald's. So you need to use the theory and knowledge you have about different organizational behavior topics and link it to the business McDonald's. So the internet is not required here in this session, test. So they won't need any books. It's not an open textbook. They should use their knowledge and their what they've learned in the lessons, in their memory, to be able to then sift through all that information they have in their memory to pick out the best things. And as we've been discussing right throughout the other sessions, it's about being analytical and being evaluative to be able to get the higher points and to get the distinction grades. So just for any student who really does not have a clue who McDonald's are, I do give a little bit of information about McDonald's in relation to organizational behavior. So you can see here, I've just given a little snippet that says McDonald's is widely known around the world as a fast food restaurant. McDonald's values to their staff and communities involve commitment to families, offering young people opportunities. They invest in their staff, operate in human rights and ethical business, global diversity, inclusion and community engagement, gender balance and diversity, and farmer livelihoods. So just from that little bit of information I have given, the students, if they do not know what McDonald's is about, from an organizational behavior perspective, they get a little more information there. But first of all, the first question is based around internal and external influences. So I've copied and cut up the grading criteria, and you can see here, this is how you get your pass, your merit, and your distinction. So just to get the pass grade, you are describing the internal and external factors to consider organizational behavior. So in thinking of it as in an individual, so an individual member of staff, in a group, or another word of a team concept, and also as an organization, and then for a selected business. So our selected business here is McDonald's. To be able to move that on to the merit grade, then they are explaining why is it important to consider internal and external factors in the selected business. So McDonald's here for this example. And then finally, for that distinction, they are now evaluate the severity of the internal and external factors described. So how severe are they? They might be an internal factor, but it's not going to have a huge impact on the business, but it might have a really big impact on the individual. So you're looking at the severity. And remember, these things can also be a positive thing, or they could be a negative thing. And then also, as part of this distinction, we're giving suggestions on how the selected business needs to change. So let's have a look at how the students will answer those, get those pass, merit and distinction grades. So the questions here is that McDonald's needs to consider what is happening inside and outside of the business, so internal and external. I've given them a little hint and tip there that internal and external is inside and outside. Then they need to make sure they make relevant changes to the business for their employees. So question number 1 then, it says describe 2 internal and 2 external factors that McDonald's will need to consider in relation to organizational behavior. So let's just go through that first bullet point then question number 1. So first of all, I'm asking them to describe 2 internal factors. Now in our lessons, we did a list of internal and external factors. If the students use a different one from the list we used in our lessons, and it makes complete sense, then that is absolutely fine. They can still get points for that. So do not feel the students have to stick to the list that we've done in our lesson. So if they want to go and think outside of the box and think of something else, which is not on our list, and it makes sense, then that is absolutely fine. I will still mark it. So when I'm saying here, describe 2 internal factors that McDonald's will need to consider, then I'm looking for 2 small paragraphs because the students are having to describe that. So if the students are having to describe an internal factor, which is staff turnover, for example, they might describe staff turnover at McDonald's being very high. And then they are describing what staff turnover is. And then the second half of this question then is 2 external factors that McDonald's needs to consider. So they might want to think about the pandemic, for example. It's not on our list, but is absolutely fine to use, as long as then they can relate it back to organizational behavior. So they could then say, the pandemic, people are having to take lots of time off. This will have a negative impact on the business. And they can talk then a little bit about how the pandemic will link to organizational behavior and McDonald's. If I go through all of these and questions 1 to 4, and then afterwards, if you've got any questions, then please, we can go back, that's fine. So question number 2 then, for each factor, comment on whether it affects the employee, the group or the team, and or the organization. So what the students here are going back over the 4 paragraphs above in question number 1, and they are adding another paragraph here. And this time they are adding if it affects either employees, the group, or the organization. Now for question number 2, the detail does not have to be very strong, because what I want to see is that they understand that if something happens, so let's take the pandemic for external factors once again. So for does it affect the employee? Yes, it does. Can this affect the team? Yes, it does. Can it affect the organization? McDonald's? Yes, it does. So the students do not need to go into this one in very much detail. However, they do need to remember to link it back to to question number 1. If students want to join question number 1 and question number 2 together because it's a bit easier, that's absolutely fine. What I suggest that they do is, just to make it clear, under the next to their question, they put question 1 and 2. So then when I'm marking it, it's very nice and clear for the examiner to be able to go, okay, I am looking for question 1 and 2. Question number 3 then. For each factor, evaluate how severe each factor could be in the business and give suggestions on how McDonald's can change to overcome the factor. So you're going back over once again those 4 factors in question number 1. So for each of those factors, they are saying how severe that factor could be on the business. And then they are saying, I suggest McDonald's does this to help overcome that factor. So for each of those, I'm suggesting a paragraph for each factor. The final question, question number 4 in this section, says, why is it important for McDonald's to consider internal and external factors? So I'm looking for a very good paragraph here. Okay, so one very good paragraph, and I don't mean just a couple of lines. It has to be a really good paragraph. The question is, why is it important? So I'm looking for a number of reasons why McDonald's needs to consider internal and external factors. So if we just go over these questions again, question number 1 is to help to get that pass grade. Question number 2 is also linked to the pass grade. Question number 3 links to the distinction grade, and question number 4 links to the merit grade. Now, if the students do 1, 2, and 3 and don't do question 4, those 25 marks are going to start sliding down the scale. But you need to be able to get all the answers from questions 1 to question 4 in as much detail as possible to get those 25 marks. So just pause there. Miss Alina, do you have any questions you would like to ask me about the Learning Outcome 1 questions?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Daniel. Okay, to make sure if if the students can answer question number 1 and 2 well, so he or she will get the pass, is it right?
Yeah.
And then question 1, 2, and 3, he or she will get merit, is it? Or pass?
No.
What is it?
No, that's okay. So question 1 and 2 is linked to the pass questions.
Okay.
So they are the easier questions, okay? Question number 3 is linked to the distinction. So I will be rewarding more points for the distinction. And then question number 4 is the merit question.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just say that the student answers question 1, 2, and 3 and forgets to do number 4, which is the merit question. I will still be offering points, but they will start to slide down the scale of those points.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. 3 is
Any other questions, Miss Alina, before we move on?
not yet. Okay. Just a bit confused about the previous.
You're still a bit confused?
Previously. But
Oh,
now it's
previously.
yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay. So let's move on to motivation then, our Learning Outcome 2. So our pass is about outlining how an organization motivates employees. Then the merit grade is comparing the use of motivation theories in an organization, and we looked at 3, and the students also need to use these 3. So if they use another theorist, then they will lose points. So it is the theories or the theorists in this section is Maslow, Hertzberg, and Vroom. So the students have to know about those 3 theorists. The distinction grade then is suggesting with justification, ways of improving motivation in an organizational setting. So an organizational setting is another word for organization, McDonald's. So let's have a look at our questions then. So my little bit of a scenario to get the questions going is it is very important for McDonald's to motivate employees. If they do this effectively, then employees will be more productive. So let's have a look at question number 1. So describe how McDonald's will motivate their employees. And I've given a little hint here. I want 3 different points. So first of all, it doesn't matter what motivation techniques that the students use. So they might say a bonus, for example. They might not know they get a bonus. That's still absolutely fine, okay? And then the students will need to describe what a bonus is. Or they might say that another method is having team meetings, weekly team meetings to help motivate their employees. So they just need to give 3 points. So I'm looking for 3 paragraphs here. Because they're having to describe each of the motivational techniques, then that will be 3 paragraphs. And then the second part of the question then is and link to a theorist. So whether it's Maslow, Hertzberg or Vroom. So within their 3 paragraphs, in each of those 3 paragraphs, they then need to link to a theorist. Now, as you can see in my text, it says a theorist. So students do not have to write about all 3. They can just link it to one just to make it easier for themselves. What I'm looking for when I'm marking is that do they understand how it links to theory? So it does not matter either if they have 3 points and they have they link 1 to Maslow, 1 to Hertzberg, 1 to Vroom. If they have 3 points and do 2 with Maslow and 1 with Hertzberg and none with Vroom, that is also fine. They can do whatever they wish with the theorists. So just to recap then, the McDonald's 3 ways how McDonald's can motivate or will motivate their employees, and then they link it to the theorist. But when because they're describing it, I'm not just expecting them to say, this links to Maslow. I need them to go into a little bit more detail of this links to Maslow because. And then with Maslow, you can say that this links to Maslow's physiological needs. Because bonus is to do with the money, and money then is the key factor for motivation to make them then move up to the next level. So it doesn't have to be in huge amount of detail, but it does have to have some information so I know that the students know what Maslow's about. They know what Hertzberg's about, or if they're using Vroom, they know what Vroom is about. Okay. Question number 2. What are the similarities and differences between the 3 motivational theorists? So here I'm looking for around 3 good paragraphs. And in each of those paragraphs, I want to know what are the similarities and the differences. So the students need to go into some detail with this. This is our merit grade. So question number 1 was the link to the pass grade. Question number 2 links to the merit grade. So the students are now showing me more understanding about the 3 theorists by telling me the similarities and the differences. Now, I remember when we did our lesson, we actually came up with lots of similarities and differences as we were talking about it. So that's question number 2. And question number 3 says, explain 1 new motivational technique McDonald's could introduce to improve motivation in the business. So the first keyword there, explain. They only need to come up with 1 new motivational idea that the business can use. So I'm expecting one good paragraph here. So the student will tell me what their idea is and why is their idea such a good idea. And that is how then linked to the distinction grade. So I'll hand it back over to you, Miss Alina. Have you got any questions about learning outcome 2 questions for me?
Yeah, about number 3, should the student relate it to the theorist, or just make a very new motivational technique by themselves?
No, they do not need to link it to the theorist.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I just want them to come up with a new idea that McDonald's can use. And I do remember that they do not know all the different motivational techniques that McDonald's use. I know that. So whatever idea they use, I'm assuming that they think this is a new idea. But the point is in their explanation. So what is their idea and why is their idea such a good idea at McDonald's? That is where they are getting the key points.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and this one, Daniel, if the the question paper for the students, if I'm not mistaken, it is provided by IBE, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay. So the teacher, for example, do not need to make the question paper.
No, I write them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but for maybe for the practice exam, if the teacher wants to just like make the trial test for the students, could maybe, for example, if I become the teacher, can I use any brand to for example, like this one, you use McDonald's, and then you give in the previous you give the detail about this brand, so the students will know in general about this brand. If I as the teacher, can I just use any brand? For example, like maybe KFC, for example, or Denon or Pepsodent, for example, or etc.
Yeah,
Is it okay?
that is
Only for the
absolutely
trial?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we call them mock tests here in the UK.
Yeah, mock.
So yes, and I do the same with my students. So I would take these questions, change the brand, and then they can practice that.
Okay.
Yep, that's absolutely, and they can use McDonald's as well if they wish.
Okay. What else? Oh yeah, for each number, for each paragraph, is there any minimum sentences for each paragraph that it will get the maximum score?
No, I usually say whether it's a paragraph or a good paragraph. So when I'm looking at a good paragraph, I'm looking more of like 1/3 of a page to, like, if it's typed. So that would probably be more half of a page if it's written. But it's all down in the detail. The students could be giving me or writing nothing in particular, so that's why it's very difficult sometimes to give like set number of sentences.
Okay.
So I'd much rather have quality over quantity.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Daniel, thank you. Yeah,
that's no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to learning outcome number 3 then. So this was about the management, leadership and employee involvement. So this was our learning outcome 3 lesson. So let's have a look at the pass, merit and distinction again. So the pass grade was about explaining how managers or leaders can gain employee involvement. The merit grade then is looking at analyze the impact employee involvement can have on an organization and an individual. And then the distinctions there's to assess the advantages and disadvantages of gaining employee involvement. So let's have a look at the questions then. So managers and leaders involving their employees in an organisation have many benefits. Okay, so question number 1 then is, what is the difference between a manager and a leader? So what I'm looking here is just one paragraph, and they are just looking at, right, what is the difference in one paragraph? What is the difference between a manager and a leader? And when we did our lesson, we did a list of what a manager is and what a leader is. So what I would suggest that the students consider is looking at, right, words that we had from a manager, words that we had from a leader, and start looking at those differences. So they are saying in one paragraph, a manager would act like this, whereas a leader would act like that. Okay, so that's one paragraph. That's linked to the past grade. So question number 2 then is, how would a manager get employees involved at McDonald's? So this is a good paragraph. They're using those key words, and then they're thinking, right, if there was a manager at McDonald's, how would they get employees involved? In comparison to question number 3 then, how would a leader get employees involved in McDonald's? So you've got the clear difference then of the students knowing what the difference is between a leader and a manager. So a manager and a leader. So these are good paragraphs once again. I feel like I merged question 2 and question 3 together there. That's absolutely fine if the students do that. Just once again on their paper, they write question 2 and 3 next to it. Now, if they forget to write question 2 and question 3, but I can easily see they've pushed those 2 questions together, that's no problem. But when you're marking papers, and I'm sure that you think the same, the clearer that the students can make their answers means then the more likely they're going to get more points. Question number 4 then is, what impact will getting employees more involved in McDonald's have on the business and the employee? So I'm looking for 2 paragraphs for this one, for question number 4, because this one, if I go over it again, what impact will getting employees more involved in McDonald's have on the business? So that's a paragraph in itself. So getting employees more involved, how will that impact the business? And then another paragraph on how it will impact the employee. So that's 2 paragraphs there. And that one's then linked to to the merit grade. And then question number 5, which is linked to the distinction grade, is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of getting employees involved in McDonald's? So I'm looking for 2 good paragraphs here. So I want the students to be able to tell me, what are the advantages? What impact can that have? And then what are the disadvantages of getting employees involved? So it's starting to look at quite a psychological aspect of organisational behaviour. So back over to you, Miss Alina. Any questions for me on learning outcome 3?
For 1, 2, 3, is it related to the past?
No, they don't have to link. To the past.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you said something else. Yes, so questions 1, 2, and 3 are past. Question number 4 is merit, 5 is distinction.
Okay. But if just in case, Daniel, if there is a student who can answer number 4 and 5, but I don't know what happened, and then the student can answer number 1 to 3. Mm-hmm. How can we mark it?
Okay, so then they will lose points for that. Now, depending on how strong their question 4 and 5 is, they might even add little bits of question 1, 2, and 3 into question 4 and 5 if it is in that good detail. So remember that the organizational behavior is very subjective. And that's why it's very difficult to say, well, if they do not do question 1, 2, and 3, they are going to lose 10 points. It can unfortunately work like that, because if they have done questions 4 and 5 in really good detail, they won't be able to get 25 points if they've not done 1, 2, and 3, but they might have added a bit of question 1, 2, and 3 in question 4 and 5 because their answer is so good.
Okay.
It's always very, very complicated, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's very challenging.
But it's really good. It's really good to be able to then, for the students to be able to learn those analytical skills and those evaluative skills, rather than having to rely on memory, and just going for the basics. So being able to understand, well, what would the impact be if that happened? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of getting employees? So they're weighing up the options and looking at a justified balance. So they are key things that we need in life. Okay, let's go on to learning outcome 4 then, the last one, which is about measuring and managing performance. So we have our pass grade here, which is about explaining how employees' performance is measured and managed. Then the merit grade is explain how the results from measuring and managing performance inform employee development. And then the final distinction is assess the importance of measuring and managing employee performance at work. Let's look at our questions once again. So McDonald's must measure and manage their employees' performance. So question number 1, explain 2 ways McDonald's could measure their employee performance. 2 paragraphs, because the key word is explain. And so it does say could measure. So I'm not expecting the students to know how McDonald's measure performance. We did our list in our lesson. Once again, like the first lot of questions, if the students use a different measurement technique that is not on our list or my list, but makes complete sense, that's absolutely fine. So 2 ways, so that's 2 paragraphs then, because what they're doing is they're saying, this is how they can measure employee performance, and this is what's good about it. So they're explaining why. When we say explain, think why. And then question number 2, very similar, explain 2 ways McDonald's could manage their employee performance. Once again, we did the list in our lesson, but if they go off the list and do something else and it makes complete sense, that's absolutely fine. So those 2 are the pass grades. Question 1, question 2 are the pass grade. Question number 3 then is how can measuring and managing performance help inform employee development? And we touched on this in our session. So we were looking at employee development, but now we're looking at how can measuring performance and managing performance help employee development. So developing your employees. And we were talking about in our session, we were saying that it's all very good that somebody might give us a target, but if we don't know how to do the job, we're not going to be able to reach the target. So then we need to have perhaps some training to help us reach those targets. So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking at when we're informing employee development. So in the appraisal process or the probation process for managing performance, that is when the employees should be saying, I don't know how to do this, and that can then inform employee development. Or the manager saying, you need to do better, Danielle. And then it comes to a 2-way conversation of how am I going to develop myself to be able to do better. So just for another example there, in my teaching, if my manager came to me and says, Danielle, you need to become an outstanding teacher, then I will be saying, well, can I please go and do some training? Can I go and watch outstanding teachers to help my employee development? And then so that's the merit grade. And then the final question 4 is the distinction grade, is what are the advantages and disadvantages of measuring and managing performance to the business and to the employees? So let me just read that again, because it's quite a mouthful. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of measuring and managing performance to the business and to the employees? So I see this as 2 very good paragraphs. Okay, the students have, I believe, 2.5 hours to do this paper, and I believe that they can do this in that time. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of measuring and managing performance to the business? They could do 1 paragraph on that, and then answer the question again, the advantages and disadvantages of measuring and managing performance to the employees. So 2 very good paragraphs there. Over to you, Miss Alina. Any questions?
Okay, so 2.5 hours is for these what is it? These 4 outcomes.
Yes, you have it. Yeah.
Okay, and if maybe there what is it? The student can make it on time. Is there any extra time, or just submit what you've done so far, or
Yeah, that is up to you in your institution. Okay.
Okay.
So here in the UK, let's just say that one student has a justified reason why they are going to be late, and they turn up to the class 30 minutes late. Now, if you are available, you can allow that student to stay. Okay. Let's just say, as another example, that the session starts at 9 a.m, finishes at 11:30, and the student turns up at 11 o'clock. That is down to you and your team of whether you allow them, you want them to stay, because that means then you have to stay. So I will leave that to you. Now, if it starts at 9 and finishes at 11:30 and the student turns up at 12, no, the answer is no, because the students could very easily speak to that other student to give them helpful hints and tips before they go into the test.
Okay, so we can give him or her extra time on that day, on the same day, but it is a big no if, like, for example, we reschedule to the another day.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and is there any in your experience so far, what is it, teaching behavior, organizational behavior, is there any student who has an what is it, who do not who do not pass the grading? I mean, they are under 44, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, under
40 is the pass grade.
Yeah. Is there any student like that before?
No, I haven't had anybody that has not passed yet.
Okay.
Okay,
and if if maybe it happened, how can we how can we face it, Danielle?
Yep, so they can resit. They are allowed to resit 1 more time. Okay. So they will have to pay again, but they are able to resit 1 more time. Okay. And just as, because you reminded me of the grading criteria, so the pass mark is 40. Then the merit mark is 55. And then the distinction mark is 70. So it'll be 40 to 54, 55 to 69, 70 plus, or to 100.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. What else? Yeah, I think that's all for now.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm good. I'm pleased. It's because we've been doing it throughout the sessions as well. It probably is not a huge surprise. But that is the end of the session. I knew that it wasn't going to take a huge amount of time because we built it into our other sessions. And please, I will ask final questions in a moment. So our next session is on Friday, the 7th of January. In the UK, we have quite a long Christmas break. And so so I won't be back then until something like the 4th of January. So we won't see each other before then. So when we come back on the 7th of January, I'm very sad, Lisa Simpson here.
I'm so jealous of you guys in UK. We do not have any, what is it, Christmas holiday here? But actually I'm going to take some days off because I'm going to marry.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, a Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
Wedding, I mean, Christmas wedding. Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, Christmas wedding. Yeah, thank you, Daddy.
No, that's exciting.
Thank you.
I find it very fascinating in Indonesia. The difference between like the UK and the Indonesian weddings can be very, very different. If you don't mind me asking, are you a Christian?
Yeah, I'm Catholic.
Yeah. So at my wedding, I had 23 people. So our weddings can be quite small. My wedding was very small in comparison, but most are around 100 people. But I know in Malaysia and Indonesia, you can have hundreds and hundreds of people.
But because of pandemic, the trend in Indonesia is getting a bit different, and it's more intimate now because the rules from the government. And for me, later on in the church, there are only 40 people who are allowed. Yes. It's quite big for you, yeah.
Yeah, that's big for me. Yeah.
and also for the wedding lunch after that, I will have like 100, and it is small for us. Most of my friends, they invite like 200, 300, or almost 500. Okay.
Wow, 500 people. Gosh. Wow. The wedding industry in Asia is just crazy.
Yeah. It's really crazy.
Oh, but you're excited?
Yes, of course, excited and getting panic because
no need to panic. Are you nervous?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
really nervous.
What I found on my wedding day is the panic goes you have no panic because you've done everything that you can, so it will be what it will be. Just enjoy it. Yeah. Que sera, sera. Oh, I just thought of one thing whilst we were talking about giving students the extra time, and it's now gone out of my head. That's okay. If it comes back to me, I'll let Miss Chandel know to pass the message on. It's fine. But yes, on the 7th of January, you will be a married lady then.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, between now and the 7th, I have set a test for you and Mr. Ango to do. Okay. Now, if you do not get around to completing the test, do not worry, because what we're going to do is on the 7th is we're going to see what you have written and see in comparison to what I would suggest, so we can see a difference. But if you do, I know that you, Mr. Ango, are very, very busy people. So if you do not get around to completing the test, if you could even just read through the questions before the session and just jot down some notes, And then on the 7th of January, we can just go through each of our notes together. Okay, just to see if you guys understood what I have been talking about the last couple of months.
Okay. Okay, 7. So it will be on Friday, yeah? Friday.
Yeah, Friday the 7th.
Okay. Okay, I'll tell Mr. Rango later.
Yeah, great. And then Miss Chandel will send out those tests. So
Okay.
I haven't set a time on it. It's just questions for you to just answer and see how much can I remember.
Okay.
Okay. Also in that session, we'll have any final questions because it will be our last session together. So just those last questions that you might have for me. Okay. Great. So do you have any questions about today or the 7th?
I think no for now. Yeah, because maybe I will have the question if we later on the 7th January do the we go through the test by mean together. Yeah. If for now I just remember imagine that okay, I can do it. I can do that. Because in the writing skill, me and Mr. Rango, Mr. Rango is quite better than me for the writing skills. I find I find no interest in writing actually, but I am a teacher, right? Yeah, but yeah, I have to I have to push myself to write more actually.
Yeah. Well, within the test, not your test, but in the students' tests, if they make spelling mistakes, but I still know what the word is, I'm not going to mark them down.
Okay.
If they get, some things muddled up, I'm just trying to think about maybe an example. So maybe they're not 100% clear, but I understand what they're trying to say. Then they will not lose marks.
Okay.
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 So there is an English unit. That is where they do need to make sure what they're writing is clear. But I've been a teacher for 16 years. Even English students write things in a very strange way sometimes, and I think I know what you're trying to say here.
Okay, then.
Okay, but yeah, for spellings, that's fine. If the students want to take in a dictionary, as in a book, not because you can't have the internet or the telephone. If they want a dictionary book in with them, they can. That's no problem.
Okay.
But it does slow them down.
Yeah. They will take time to look for the word.
Look for the word.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. Now. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. Any other questions before I say goodbye?
No, I don't think so. Just want to say thank you so much, Daniel.
Oh, you're very welcome. No, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you and Mr. Rango.
Yeah.
It's been very, very enjoyable. I've looked forward to these sessions. Thank you for being so interactive with me as well, because, well, we all know as teachers that online sessions can be very difficult.
Yes.
But you've definitely made my job a lot easier. So thank you.
We thank you.
Oh, and we will meet one day.
Yes, hopefully.
Yes, I need to come back to Indonesia. I am missing Indonesian food so badly.
What would you like?
Oh, I like the mie goreng. I just like soto ayam.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I love soto ayam. Yes, just also all the lovely fish you have. Oh my goodness me. Oh, well, I will hand back to Miss Chandel to be able to close the session and turn off the recording, and then I will see you after Christmas.
Yes.
All the best for your wedding.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No, that's okay. What I would love to see on the 7th of January is some of your wedding photos, if that's okay. I'd love to see your wedding photo.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Keep healthy, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Okay.
God bless you.
Yeah, take care. Take care.
Yeah.
Over to you, Miss Chanel.
Right, thank you very much, Danielle. And Miss Elena, congratulations.
Thank you, Miss
Okay,
Chanel.
so this marks the end of today's session. I will forward the slides and the exam paper to you later today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.